I miss. I done got hit with a heavenly flow. Into the clip, loading it up and I'm letting it blow. Better move quick, it's life and death, and you can't choose both. This ain't about to go the way that you think, I'm just letting you know. Taking the stats from where I'm at, it's not even close. Bridging the gap, if I get a track, murder she wrote. Bigger than rap, we coming back for whatever you stole. Believe when I say that I say.
Let's get it. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the SchuZ Show. I'm your host, Zach Shoemakers. A lot of you guys know me as SchuZ, and I'm excited to have each and every single one of you guys that tune in today. I alluded to in the post I just made a few moments ago that I'm going to have Phumelele Cafu coming on the show in just a few moments. So I just want to give you guys a preview about that. We're going to get into a lot of different topics with him. He's going to be joining me very, very shortly. And then after that, I'm going to get into some combat currents topics. I'm going to break down fights from last weekend, some news that's going on in this combat sports world currently, and a lot more. So you guys are not going to want to miss today's show. It's going to be a great one. Now, the verse of the week is Luke chapter 12, verse 34. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. I'm going to have the full Eternal Echoes that discusses that verse coming out shortly, probably by tomorrow. So you guys aren't not going to want to miss that one. But with that being said, I'm going to go on a short break, get Phumelele Cafu in here, and then we'll get right to the interview with him. So I appreciate you guys all for tuning in. I'll see you guys very shortly. If you were to have the ball in your hands the whole game, you're the guy for a whole season, 82-game season, how much do you think you're averaging?
Ball in my hand, 25, no doubt. Easy. 25, no doubt, easy. And that's just me knowing my ability and knowing what I can bring every night. Because I feel like, because I see like the little stats on Twitter, some games, they be like, when Canton plays this certain amount of minutes, he averages 30, or he plays, this amount of games with this amount of minutes, he averages 25. So I feel like if I have the ability to play with the ball in my hand, make the decisions and all that stuff, I feel like I can average 25 points a game easy, no doubt.
If you were to have the ball in your hands the whole game, you're the guy for a whole season, 82-game season, how much do you think you're averaging?
Ball in my hand, 25, no doubt. Easy. 25, no doubt, easy. And that's just me knowing
that I miss. I done got hit with a heavenly flow. Into the clip, loading it up and I'm letting it blow. Better move quick, it's life and death, and you can't choose both. This ain't about to go the way that you think, I'm just letting you know. Taking the stats from where I'm at, it's not even close. Bridging the gap, if I get a track, murder she wrote. Bigger than rap, we coming back for whatever you stole. Believe when I say that, I say all of that, cause I'm ready to.
Welcome back, everyone, to the SchuZ Show. I'm your host, Zach Shoemaker. As I alluded to right before the quick break, I have a very special guest that's going to be joining me in just a few short seconds now. He is now the WBO World Super Flyweight Champion of the world. He's Phumelele Cafu. Phumelele, I appreciate taking time to come on today, man.
Thank you for also having me, man. By the way, to those who don't know me, I'm Phumelele the Truth Cafu, all the way from Taken Village in East London, South Africa.
Absolutely, man. Well, first of all, you have your belt with you right now. I've got to talk to you about this because you are now a world champion. You've achieved one of your biggest dreams, I'm sure, since you've been a young guy, and you have that belt with you right now. Walk us through the emotions. Walk us through what it just feels like to officially be a world champion and have your own belt now.
One lie, man. It wasn't easy. But for me, I started boxing. I think at the age of 3, because I used to go with my dad to the gym.
Mm-hmm.
So every time we went to the gym, I would go to him. I would go with him. And then I made my amateur debut at the age of 6, 7 years old. And as an amateur, I have about 117 fights. And I've got like 7 loss and 8 draws. 7 loss, 8 draws, 8 or 9 then wins. Now I've turned pro at 2018. When I turned pro, I was 19 years old. So my record as a professional boxer now is currently like 14 fights, 11 wins, 3 draws, and 8 knockouts.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so going into this fight, man, I knew it's gonna take a lot for me to win. So I had to dig deep. Like my training camp also was kind of like very, very, very intense. Because I knew Tanaka is a tough guy, and I knew like in order for me to win, I gotta like make sure I bring out the best in me. So even my coach made sure that I'm well conditioned. I'm fit mentally, physically, and spiritually, man. So I did everything that had to be done. So yeah, I'm glad that I got the victory.
All right, so for those that don't know, obviously when you win your world championship, you don't just get the belt immediately. You have a custom one made for yourself, and that's the one you now currently have because I know you just received it. And so having that own personal belt now that you get to keep forever, it's your own one. What was it like just picking it up for the first time and feeling your own belt?
It felt amazing, man. I
Mhm.
won't lie, it felt amazing, but it didn't feel amazing as when I won the belt.
Sure.
When they announced the ring announced in the new, I just fell into my knees, man, because I was overwhelmed. I can't even explain the feeling that I was feeling, because it's everything that I've ever wanted. Now I finally got it. It felt amazing, man, and knowing that nobody gave it to me, I've earned it.
Hmm.
So it was really amazing, man. But it felt good also when knowing that now I get to have my own belt. I'll have something to show even when like I've retired in boxing. I'm no longer boxing. I will say at least I was a world champion one day, and this is the what I have to show. Even
All
my
right, so
grandkids are able to see it.
and I want to ask about that a little bit more because I have to imagine that as a boxer, once you officially talked about pursuing boxing, that's what you want to do with the rest of your life. That your goal immediately became, I want to be a world champion. That's the biggest goal of anyone that wants to be a boxer. When did you start to realize in your life, though, that that was a really realistic opportunity for yourself? That you actually started to believe in yourself and say, you know what, I have a chance to become a world champion.
I'd say, man, it was in when I was in grade 9.
Hmm.
For because growing up, I used to play like soccer, and I used to play boxing. So I wasn't taking any sport seriously. I was just enjoying the moment.
Sure.
So when I was in grade 9, I remember when people ask me like, what do I want to be when I grow up? I used to say I want to be like a doctor. So the thing is, I failed my grade 9, and I was like, damn. So if I failed my grade 9, so which means I'm not as smart as I think I am, because I wasn't even studying. Like I was a clown. I was a class clown.
Hmm.
So because I never thought I could fail, because I used to be smart in primary school. So for me, it was like, ish. Now that I failed, So I'm not as smart as I think I am. And
Sure.
knowing that, in order for me to be a boxer, I gotta do like physics and maths. So it was like, ish. I knew if in order for me to do those subjects, I gotta make sure like my mind is in the right place and I'm straight. So I gotta make sure I focus more on my books. So there won't be any time for sport. So I thought, now I should like maybe cancel being a doctor. So that's when I started to do some more digging in boxing, and I saw Floyd Mayweather back then, how he was living, what it took for him to be there, how was he his own boss. So for me, that was the goal. I said to myself, if Floyd is living like this, there's nobody telling him what to do. He's his own boss. So if he's done it, I know that I could also do it. From there on, that was the mindset that I also want to be like him. I want to live my own life by my own rules. So I was like, nah, I gotta become a world champion one day. So yeah.
Now, when that first originally set in for yourself, when would you say it was? Like, would you say it was a couple years ago? When would you say, okay, you actually see the path to being world champion? Because obviously, when you're a boxer and you're growing up anywhere, there's a long journey. Like you said, you've had to go through 14 fights, you got to go through the amateur ranks. When would you
Mm.
say it started kind of settle in? You said, okay, now I see the light at the end of the tunnel. I actually think that this is a realistic goal for myself. I'm maybe 3, 4, 5 fights away, whatever it might be. Like, when did you think it started really becoming a reality for yourself, saying, you know what, I legitimately do have a chance not becoming a world champion?
It was when I fought Jackson Chauke.
Hmm.
It was when I fought Jackson Chauke for the second time, because Jackson is an elite fighter, and currently now he is the flyweight IBO world champion.
Yep.
So I fought Jackson the first time, and the fight was close. It ended up being a draw. We were fighting for the SA title. So there on, I thought, okay, I do have what it takes to be an SA champion, which means I could win the title. But
Hmm.
then I went on to fight for an WBA intercontinental title. I was fighting a Philippine, Ben Monaco, and I knocked him out in round 5. So I thought, okay, now I'm an international champion. So which means, okay, I'm getting there.
Sure.
Maybe I do have what it takes to compete in the world stage. Then I fought Jackson twice. On the second time, it was in December 2022, and I dominated the fight and I won the fight by split decision. But I kind of felt like I dominated the fight. So after that, I started to lock in there like, yeah, man, now I want to be a world champion. If I could beat Jackson, because I think Jackson has about 20 something fights, and he only lost twice. He lost to Scatter and also lost to me.
Hmm.
So I knew like beating him, which means I will be a world champion. That's when the mentality started to kick in that I do have what it takes to be a world champion. So yeah, from there on, I never looked backwards.
All right, so I want to get into this past fight, the one that made you officially a world champion against Tanaka. And so we have to go back to a few weeks before you actually went out there and stepped in that ring. I read a report, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but it was that you ended up having a shoulder injury, and it was actually a pretty painful one. You actually were considering even pulling out of the championship fight for a little bit. Can you take us through that a little bit more? Like, what all went down 3 or 4 weeks before you actually stepped in the ring for your world championship fight?
Yeah, it was 3 weeks before the fight. I think because I was training too hard,
Mm.
my shoulder started to be painful. Couldn't like move it. Whenever I move it, I could feel it that it becomes painful. And whenever I made a solid first and tried to pass the back or pass the pad, I could feel it that I can't patch it correctly because it's very painful. So
Mm.
instead of me like for me, I thought maybe okay, I shouldn't tell my trainers because I knew that Colin wouldn't let me fight with one arm. So I thought, ish, maybe I shouldn't tell them. But I think they were, even though if I didn't tell them, they were gonna notice because I couldn't hide it. It was painful. So I thought instead of making more damage, I should tell them. And I told them, and I was sent to the Power to Health, and I was put in the uh, oxygen chamber for about an hour, and then I think it went on. I attended like 3 sessions a week. So the following week, I could like hear that I could move my arm like properly now, so it wasn't as painful. They also put me in a flotation and ice bath. So it kind of helped a lot. In the second week, I also went in for the treatment, and yeah, before I even left, I could feel my shoulder is good now. I could do things that I wasn't able to do when it was painful, and then I knew that I'm ready for the fight. But
All right, hold
it was
up. So to stop you
Yeah.
real quickly, though, so you said that you couldn't even really move your shoulder at all about 3 weeks ago. Like that's how painful it was.
Now I could move it, but when I move it, it was painful. Whenever I
Gotcha.
move it, I'll try to make a solid fist and punch. I could feel it that it's painful. So yeah, it was really painful. But after a week, I could really move it, and I couldn't feel pain as I did. But I didn't stop the treatment, and I went on for the second week. And yeah, going to Japan, my shoulder was fully healed.
So you went in just about 3 weeks somehow. You were able to go from that much pain to being able to fight at a world championship level. Then.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I also think God really played a big part,
Hmm.
because I'm a person who believes in God so much. My faith is very high. I believe in Lord, so I was also praying for my shoulder to make sure that He heals it. And also thanks to Power to Health for making sure that my shoulder is fully recovered. Because I don't think there was no way I could beat Tanaka with 1 hour with one arm. You could see it was very tough with both arms. Imagine if I went in there with one arm. I
Yeah.
think it could have knocked me out in the early rounds. So yeah, I knew I couldn't win with one arm. So that was really stressing me, because I knew even if I told my coach and they didn't have any solution, they were gonna pull me out of the fight.
Hmm. Now,
Yeah.
when you only have 3 weeks, I mean, you're talking about just wrapping up training camp pretty shortly there. I mean, you're in the very final stages. It was a very probably last second thing for yourself. So, at what point and how close did you ever get to possibly pulling out the fight? Was it ever something that was a realistic thing on the table? And if so, like, when did you officially say, you know what, I'm good to go. I am going to fight now. We're going to go to Japan.
It was after the first week after my treatment. I think the reason that my shoulder pained like this is because since we were like, because I only stopped conditioning 2 weeks before the fight,
Hmm.
so I thought it was okay. It was gonna be my last week on the conditioning. So a week before, I pushed myself very hard, even in the swimming. Usually, like on the swimming, my record, the last time when I was preparing for the last fight, the record was I think I did 40 laps in 31 seconds. So I was pushing myself, knowing that the following week I gotta make sure I beat the record that I put into my last fight. So I was pushing for probably like 20, 26, 20, 25 seconds, 25 minutes or 27. But I
Hmm.
needed to make sure I make less than 30 minutes for my 40 laps. So I'm also pushing also on the weights, making sure that everything, because my trainers were, well, when people train, you feel like even though you can feel the intensity, but it feels like you ain't doing enough. Because I was like, I'm going to the toughest fights of my career, so I gotta make sure I also push myself. I think that's what kind of damaged my arm, because I was pushing a lot. So yeah.
All right, you also brought up your faith in God. I want to get into that a little bit with you because I know you're also a believer. So take us through that a little bit because obviously that's the most important thing as we go through our journeys on earth. So take us through that a little bit more. Like when would you say you became a believer in God? Was that something that you were just born into? Was it something that you more grew as you got older? Or when did you really come into your faith with God?
It's something that I was born to. My granny was a Catholic. So I used to go to the church. I was still young at that time. So there was we go to church on Sunday. Then she would attend probably like during the week, attend prayers and stuff. So I used to go with her. And one thing she told me how to pray. She told me that there is a God. So I should, whenever like I feel like there's nothing that I could do, like always make sure that I pray to God. Even like when I have something, I must always pray. It doesn't matter like where I am in life or what. I should always pray. So I've started praying as a kid. So I went to church as a kid. I don't usually go to church now, but as a kid I used to go to church a lot. But fortunate for me, I do know God, and I think I was baptized because I was still young at that time. I do pray to God. I pray every day. So yeah, man.
So where would you say has been the biggest moment that you've seen God show up in your life so far then?
God have really saved me in some plenty things, bro. I was once stabbed. I've been in wars. Cause where I'm from, it's very rough. It's a rough neighborhood. So God have really saved me in things that people wouldn't understand. Cause to them it's normal, but sometimes a thing happen, and I noticed that this is not just something that happened on its own. God, because I remember one time, me and my friend, some guys pulled up on us, and my friend got shot, and I didn't even get shot. I never even got a scar. So I believe in God so much, man. He always pulls up for me, and like he did on this fight, he pulled through for me.
Absolutely, man. Well, let's get into this world championship fight now because you're going up against a guy in Tanaka who is a four-weight world champion. He's a very, very good boxer. He's an incredible boxer, actually. And you're going in there. Obviously, you haven't been on a world championship stage yet. This is your first time. And you're going to his home country as well, a place that is a very, very crazy place. We talk about Japan, one of the best boxing fans in all the world. And so, obviously, on paper, when you look at it, you're going in there as an underdog, per se. He's the champion. It's his home territory. And that's a tough place to go win a fight on because, obviously, like I said, all the fans are going to be supporting him, so on and so forth. And so, you kind of have that chip on your shoulder a little bit. You have that underdog nature. What was your mindset heading into that fight?
I won't lie, man. Since I was in Manchester, like people, like all my life through my career, a lot of people wrote me off. When I was fighting Jackson, they wrote me off. They never thought I could beat Jackson because our first fight with Jackson, I had about 6 fights, and
Mm-hmm.
Jackson had about 21 or 22 fights back then. But I went there and put in a good performance. So I've been like underrated. So I feel like it's kind of good when people underrate you instead of overlooking you. So going to that fight, I knew like not too many people think I'm gonna win, and I think it was like what made me push more because I knew that I do have what it takes to win, and I knew that I had the right corner because we were planning Tanaka, and I was actually thinking that I'm gonna knock Tanaka out because I do believe in my power a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So because whenever we watched Tanaka's clips, we could see Tanaka makes a lot of mistakes. So my predictions were it's either I knock Tanaka out in round 5 or 6 because I knew once the fight start to heat up, it's gonna make a lot of mistakes and I'm gonna catch him in counter. So that was the goal. So going to Japan, I got a warm welcome from the fans. I won't lie. Before I even fought, there were fans waiting for me in the lobby for autographs and pictures.
Mm-hmm.
So thanks to Japanese fans, man, for showing love and stuff. So yeah, going to the fight, I remember like catching Tanaka in round 5, and he went down. So in my mind, it was like, yeah, this is the round that I predicted the knockout in. So I think I could knock him out. Also credit to him, Tanaka. Tanaka is a very tough dude. Because after I knocked him, I could see that his legs were really there. So I went for the finish. But as I was going for the finish, I needed to make sure I'm cautious also because I don't want to be caught while I'm going for the kill. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, knocked him down and I couldn't knock him out. So in the following round, also like okay, this is the round that I also predicted to knock out in. So I tried to go for the kill also in round 6, but I couldn't catch him cleanly, and I could see like now it's fully recovered. So I also had to be away. So yeah, in round 7, a lot was going through my mind. A lot was going through my mind in round 7. I think that was the worst round of the fight.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, because round 7 now, imagine now I went in there with the mentality that I'm gonna knock him out in round 5 or 6.
Yeah.
So now I caught him with a great punch and he stood up. Now in round 7, he's starting to turn up the heat. His pace where he was in another level. So now I started to question my own fitness. Am I really fit enough? What if I try to keep up with the same pace? Will I be able to keep up for full 12 rounds? So a lot was going through my mind. Because if I was like, hey, the way he's coming, which means he's gonna go like this for full 12 rounds. So will I be able to keep up and stuff? So well, as I was thinking all of those things, it kept on coming, kept on coming, kept on coming. So a lot was in my mind. I thought, maybe I'm gonna lose the fight or something because the way it's coming, I could feel that there's no way I could keep up with that pace. So as I went into the corner, Colin reminded me that. I must remember that I'm not doing this just for me. I promised
Mm-hmm.
my mom something, so I gotta make sure that I deliver. So in my head, to me, it was like, Tanaka is not really taking my dream away; he's also taking my mother's dream away. So I stood up there, was like, nah. If I guess out, I'd rather guess out instead of waiting for the right moment to catch him. So I went in there and I gave my all, man.
Mm-hmm. And you just were talking about what Colin came and talked to you about, and I wrote down a little bit. Obviously, I'm going to paraphrase some of what he told you, and I want you to a little bit react and break down exactly how you react at that moment. But here's what Colin said. He said, "Look at me. You're giving him too much respect. Now listen to me. All that you want to buy your mother a home and an apartment in Santone, you're letting him take it away from you. Walk us through that as you're sitting there and you have a trainer that you trust, that you love, and all those things. And yet you said you're at
Mm.
a point now where it's a tough part of the fight. You're over halfway now. You've already had a few good rounds. You obviously have the knockdown, so you have the 2 point advantage from that round. But it's the second half of that fight now, and you're getting down to the tough parts where he is more accustomed to it. What and how important and how impactful was what Colin talked to you about right there for you in the rest of that fight?
It was really important, man. It was really important because, sorry, remember, even though I was training for a knockout, we was also training for full 12 rounds. Because in the gym, I could do like 14 or 16 rounds or sometimes 20 rounds.
Hmm.
So I was ready for full 12 rounds. So I feel like my brain was kind of off because it was like playing games with me. Because remember, it's the first time that I'm fighting at the world stage, and I think this was the second time that I was fighting for full 12 rounds. So that's why I was questioning myself, forgetting that I've worked very hard throughout the camp, preparing for full 12 rounds. I knew that I might not be able to knock him out. So maybe like I don't know, man. So Colin telling me that I gotta make sure that I think Colin made sure that my mind is back in the game because as soon as I stood up, I was like, nah, I gotta go, like I gotta go there and do me because it doesn't matter if I guess out or what, but I gotta make sure I do my best, man.
And I want to go a little bit deeper because you also discussed the aspect about being in Japan now. And I have to assume that was probably your first time going out there to Japan to fight, especially at that area. So walk us through just the environment, though, because you're going into a situation. And for those that aren't aware, that entire weekend was a pretty stacked card. You talk about the back-to-back days, so many championship level fights. I believe it was 7 championship fights over those 2 days. And so it was a massive event. What was it like just fighting, though, in that environment where you're surrounded by some of the best fans in all boxing in a very, very historic boxing area? How cool is just being a part of that card and being a part of that environment?
It was kind of cool, man. Very, very cool. Because you could see the fight card was also stacked.
Yeah,
But just for the whole experience for me was out of this world because for me that seeing the media like that, seeing everyone like that, because also the Japanese fans didn't even boo me; they were cheering for me when I went out. So
yeah.
it was really amazing, man. It was really amazing. But for me, it was like I don't matter what they do, I'm just gonna go there and do me. But fortunate for me, they were also cheering for me.
Yeah. And so I want to go back into the fight a little bit more, a couple more questions about that because I look back at that and I watched a little bit of the highlights again. Cause I was up at, I think I was at that point, like 2 a.m, our time over here when I was watching it. So it was obviously late in the night and YouTube put on an absolute show. I think that could be debatably one of the best world championship fights of this year because YouTube are both going at it and it really literally went down right to the 12th round there. When you were in that environment then, because like I talked about, that was a crazy place to be in. You're at a world championship stage. Both of you guys are exchanging a lot of punches, both of you guys taking a lot of punch, taking a lot of beating in that rounds. What was it like just being able to push through, and how were you ultimately able to? You talk about those 11th, the 10th, 11th, 12th round championship level fights. What were those rounds like, and how did you push through it to ultimately get the win?
I won't lie, my corner also played a big role because I think at the start of the round, after round 10, I went back to the corner and they told me this is where we separate the men. This is where we separate the boys from men.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're a man. You gotta make sure you bring out your A game. Now he said I could see you getting fatigued, but it doesn't matter. You said you want it. Just go out there and get it. Make sure that everyone sees that you want it with all your heart. So make sure you do you and throw a lot of punches as you can and try to stay off the roads. So which meant so I had to be there and trade with Tanaka blow for blow. So to me it was like yeah, I'm ready for anything because I remember I said I also wanted because I think I'm not sure what round is it, maybe around 9 or 10. My calf had a tramp. I had a tramp on my calf. It also like hit me after the fight. I had a tramp on my calf and I could feel it. So to me it was like, "Ish, if my leg give up, maybe I'll just take a knee." At least I thought. But as I was thinking about that, maybe like, okay, would I be able to keep up? Hopefully my calf doesn't like really, or hopefully my leg doesn't really shut down on me because there's no way I could like try to move with my leg. It was this forward leg, my left leg. So as I went to the corner and Colin said, "We're winning the fight. Make sure you do what you do. I want another round like this." So I was like, "Oh, which means I did good in this round." So to me, it was like, if we're winning the fight, so it doesn't matter if anything's happened to my leg. My legs rather give up on me, so everyone could see my leg gave up on me instead of taking a knee. So I went there and showed that I really want to be a world champion.
All right, so let's get to the ending of that fight then. It's all 12 rounds in the books now. before they announced the scorecard, before they announced who actually won the fight, in your mind, did you think you won the fight at that point in time?
Yeah, I think I did enough to win. But when you away from home,
Yep, exactly.
you don't usually get decisions like that. So
Mhm.
thankful to the Japanese judges, everyone that was a judge there, for scoring the fight fair and square. So to me, it was like, okay, I've done enough to win. But since we're in Japan, I didn't think they're gonna give it to me. But when you're at that stage, it doesn't matter whether you win or lose. Well, what's important is how you perform.
Yeah.
So for me, I was really happy with my performance. I didn't care if I get the decision or not, but I really wanted to be a world champion. So yeah,
All right. So when you officially hear the scorecards, then it ends up being a split decision, and then they announce that you won the fight. We see the reaction on TV, but we don't know exactly what's going on in your mind. So take us through just what was all going on in your mind when you heard that you were now officially a world champion.
yeah. To me, it was like, oh, finally. When you like start boxing and knowing that this is what you want to be your whole life, it kind of really hits you, man, because you're like, ish, now finally I am what I've always wanted to be. All my life I've been training for this, and now I am. I used to watch people fighting for all titles, Gervonta, Floyd, Errol.
Hmm.
So, by the way, Errol is my favorite boxer.
Yep.
But seeing that now I'm there on that stage, and I'm finally the world champion. Like I say, I can't even like express how I was feeling, but I was overwhelmed, man. I don't think I'll ever like feel that way again. That was the proudest moment of my life. I was really excited, man. It kind of like hit deep because you could see I was really like holding my tears back because I wanted to try, but I was like, nah, I'm not gonna try on that TV. I had to hold my because it was really overwhelming, man.
All right, so then you got to take us to the next, what was it, 48, 36 hours, whatever it was, because you ended up going and obviously you have to fly all the way back home now. So that's a little bit of a long flight there. I'm sure that had to be an exciting flight, but then we see some videos and I was going through looking at some of it because you get back in South Africa and you're not just greeted by yourself. You have all kinds of people there waiting you. You have a lot of celebration, family, all these different things going down. What was that like? Being able to have at that point, it wasn't the belt you're holding right now, it was a different belt, but you still have a belt, you're a world champion, and you get to go see people you've grown up knowing, your family. What was that reaction like when you first got off that plane, saw everybody?
So it was really amazing, man. It was really amazing seeing how people celebrate me. So it was really amazing because, like I said, you as you grow up, you dream of these moments.
Yeah.
Moments like these, people celebrating you, coming up for a big fight, being bruised and all stuff, knowing that you won, people celebrating you, showing love. So it was really amazing, man. It was really amazing, and I'd like to thank everyone who showed up and came to welcome me back home. It was really amazing, man, and all the people were really showing love.
Now, as you're a world champion, you go to South Africa, who has quite a bit of history, especially right now. You talk about combat sports, a lot of players, a lot of great fighters and whatnot. We'll get into a few moments, but it gets a lot more fame about you now. A lot more people know your name. You have a lot more respect, and that leads to a lot more attention. It leads to a lot more publicity. How have you handled that? How would you say it's been for you as you've adjusted now to the fame and having a lot of spotlight and a lot of people now knowing you around the entire country?
It feels good, man. It feels good. It feels good. I'd say like people kind of knew me, most of them. But I think now I'm known much more than I was.
Yeah.
Even if you look at my clips after like winning the fight, I said the whole world know my name.
Yeah.
So it's kind of crazy knowing that I'm known all around the world, not just in South Africa. But I think the way to keep me calm is because I don't see myself as how people see me. I'm not different from the guy that I was before I became a world champion, and I think I'll always be humble because
Mm.
I won't let fame get into my head. For me, it would be like it could have been better if I could do my own thing without being famous, but okay, it comes with the fame, so I can't help
Yeah.
it. So I'll try to be humble as I can and make sure I block the noise.
That's awesome. Kind of going back to talk about faith as we just discussed a few moments ago. That's a huge component because the second you allow yourself to get prideful and cocky or arrogant, whatever, that causes a lot of issues. That not only you're going to see it kind of show up in your life, both outside and inside the ring. So, how important has it been for you to kind of say, "Hey, you know what? I'm still Phumelele Cafu. I'm still the same guy that grew up out here. I'm still the same guy that didn't have a world championship belt just about 4 months ago." How have you been able to keep yourself still in that humble mindset of saying, you know what, I'm still just a person. I know I've achieved a lot of great things. I want to achieve a lot more, but I'm still going to live in humility.
Yeah, it's not easy, man. It's not
Yeah.
easy. I won't lie. Because now people like some every time they see me, they're hey champion. Someone hug, someone handshakes and stuff.
Hmm.
Some or when I was there in East London, most people wanted pictures. They would pull up in my crib like, oh, can we please get a picture, champ and stuff. Blah, blah, blah. So I try to move away from that because I'm a person, by the way. So maybe a friend might pull up on me and I have my own issues. Maybe I'll say something rude to them. They gotta like take it in a bad way and be like, champ. Maybe it's the first time that they meet me, like the champ is arrogant and stuff. Or but not knowing they came when I was in a bad space. So and for me, it's not because whenever I try to explain it, it will be like I'm trying to justify it. So that's why I've moved to Joburg and try to be far away from everyone, so that whenever I'm there, I could just stay for a while and then come back this side, just to make sure I don't become what can I say? I don't become a bad guy to my fans because I wouldn't be without fans. Boxers are nothing, so I gotta make sure I show love to the fans every chance that I get.
Mm, absolutely, man. So I want to ask you a few other things then, because you also talk about South Africa, and I was just discussing this. They have a pretty rich history. Obviously, it's developing because have a lot of history, but there was a quite a long drought there between kind of the new era that's now formed between you, Nashinga, and other people now. But what's it like now being in this position where you talk about the world champions in South Africa currently, yourself, Kevin Lorena is obviously there, and then you talk about, like I said, Savanchi, Nashinga. He's now, guys, I've just lost his belt that same weekend, but he's a two-time world champion as well. And then you also flip over to the UFC side. You also have a guy in Dricus Duplessis, who's now world champion too. But being in this environment, this new era of combat sports in South Africa, where you guys have three boxing world champions that's been currently champions or have been recently champions, and then you guys have Dricus as well. What's it like just being a part of this new era of combat sports in South Africa?
Feels amazing, man. Feels amazing. Knowing that my name will be mentioned amongst world champions. I think man. To be honest with you, I think South Africa has a possibility to produce more world champions. But I kind of feel like we don't get the exposure and we don't get the chances that most boxers do get. So we end up being into unnecessary fights. To us, there's no chance to build a boxer. Like for example, I fought for a SA title when I had 6 fights. But you look at some of the boxers in the United States, you'd see a guy fighting for a world title when they had about 20 something fights. You look at the people that they fought, you could see that most of the fight that they fought Bams because they were building him in order
Yeah.
they were building him to make sure that when they get to the stage they're ready for that stage. Because in boxing there's a thing that they call momentum. So as you keep on winning, you start to build your momentum. So unfortunate for us, we don't have that. When you have about 4 or 5 fights, six, you get thrown to derbies. Not making sure you're ready or what, but they do throw you there, so you gotta make sure you're ready to swim with the sharks. That's why I'm saying the Lord really played a big role in my career, and I was really fortunate. Now I have about my first title was the WBA. BF international title. I had that. I fought for that title now at about 6 fights. I have the WPF, I have the WBA Intercontinental, and I have the IBF International, and I also have the what else? The SA title, and
Mhm.
then I have the WBO World title. So I have 5 titles under my name in just 14 fights. So like I'm saying, man, we're not as fortunate as certain boxers.
So I want to ask you then, because from your perspective now, where would you prefer? Because you now look at yourself and you're 26 years old now, I believe, and you have 14 fights, but you're already world champion. That's pretty young overall for world champion. You know, a lot of people don't necessarily get that championship out that early. So that obviously separates yourself. Had you been, let's say, if you grew up in America, could you have been earlier or something along those probably? Would you say you'd almost prefer, though, being in the situation you're currently at, where you've now become a world champion this quickly, or would you have preferred kind of being built up the way some Americans do, or people maybe the UK or whatnot? Like, how would you prefer? What's the pros and cons of both sides? Would you say?
Nah, man. Like I said, I wouldn't change a thing about my life or my career.
Hmm.
It kind of feels good when you know you've done things in a different manner.
Yeah.
I would like being both correct is a very good strategy. It's great for your record and stuff. But for me, I wouldn't change a thing. I'm happy where I'm at. And hopefully one day I could make it to the SA Hall of Fame or the World Hall of Fame. That's the goal now. Since now I've become a world champion, the goal was to be a world champion. Now I'm past that. The goal is to make money and make it to the Hall of Fame. So hopefully one day, I mean, I'll be on the Hall of Fame. So that's the goal. But for real, in my shoes, it's not easy. But I won't change anything because without the tough things that I went through and the tough fights that I went through, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now.
Hmm. Now, when you talk about representing South Africa and you talk about going out to Japan, you go out to other places you're going to fight in the future, what does it mean to you to be able to represent South Africa, have that country, that whole entire nation supporting you, and you're representing them on a world stage?
It really feels amazing, man. It really feels amazing. I used to feel like I wanted to go represent South Africa as an amateur, but unfortunately, there were more good boxers than me. So I wasn't in the SA team, but I used to feel like I want to also be there. I want to be in the SA team, making sure that I represent South Africa, fly my flag up high. And I used to see boxers, Abo Moruti, Abo Hikepada, going overseas, flying the South African flag, and how we used to support and cheer for them. Remember, like we used to stay up all night just to watch a fight, 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. Because this is South African, we gotta make sure we support him. So now it kind of felt good knowing that people will be up on their TV. Some didn't even go to work because the fight was Monday, just to make sure they want to watch me. They watch my fight. So that's really amazing, man. Knowing that everyone now is cheering for me back home, it felt great, man. Because everything that I've ever wanted throughout my career.
All right, so you talked about a little bit earlier in the interview, and I want to go back to talking about your childhood, growing up a little bit in South Africa, and what that
Mm.
was like. You always talked about a couple of the stories and whatnot, but when you talk about growing up in South Africa, what was life like overall? The ups, the downs, just being able to be a part of South Africa. What was that like?
I won't lie. Maybe people think South Africa is one of the poorest country, but it's not, man.
Yep.
It's not. Here everything is good. Also, like at home, I don't come from a poor family, but I don't come from a rich family either. I come from a family that affords. So growing up, I never went to bed without a meal. I never had to hustle at a young age. So it was kind of good, man. The only thing that even like I got what I wanted, even if I didn't get it when I wanted it, but my mom made sure I do get what I want.
Sure.
So, but it's really rough in the neighborhood. In the hood, it's really rough. Crime is everywhere, but when you're in the hood, you get to see certain things, hearing gunshots at night, seeing people, knowing thugs. Growing up, I used to think, before like I had the mentality that I had, I used to think people love thugs because from where I'm from, our role models are thugs because everyone is showing love to them, the way they respect it and stuff. So I got to understand that they don't really love them, it's just that they fear them. So now it's kind of great knowing that everyone loves me, but they don't fear me. It's kind of awesome. I've
Mm-hmm.
changed the narrative. But just the only thing that I want to make sure is that I make sure that I show the kids over there and pave the way for them to make sure that they know that with boxing they can change their lives. You can make it out of the hood with boxing, and you don't have to be a gangster to be loved or to be what can I say, to be cheered by everyone. You
Mm-hmm.
can be a star and everyone will love you, not just in your hood but throughout the whole world.
How would you say growing up in that environment has helped make you into the person you are, whether that be from a mental standpoint, from who you are as a man? How would you say growing up in that environment has kind of helped guide you, make you the person that you are today?
It really helped a lot because in the hood you gotta know how to survive. Cause I used to say I'm a mama's boy, but when I'm when I'm in the streets, I gotta be a man and man up and make sure I take care of myself. Not even once have I ever told my mom what happens in the streets or I've been into fights and stuff. I used to take care of myself. Won some fights in the streets also, got stabbed some couple of times. But it really opened my mind because I was like, if I've survived the hood, which means I can survive anywhere in the world. Because I had to maneuver through things, I had to make sure I read some people's minds. I could easily like read the room, uh, didn't matter where I met. I just walk in, I could like read the room because I'm used to sitting with certain people and a lot of people that I don't even know. So instead of saying something, I gotta make sure I read the room first. So that really kind of helped me a lot because it opened my mind a lot. So I know certain things now. I don't think if I was never in the hood, I could have been the person that I am right now. So yeah, man, it really played. It also like played a big role in me. That's what I can say.
So did you say you were stabbed a couple of times there?
Yeah. I've got like 4 scars in my body.
So that was 4 different times or from one instance then?
From 2 incidents, I got stabbed twice in the one incident, and I got stabbed twice on the other incident.
So you gotta walk us through that a little bit because obviously somebody hears that. That's not something a lot of people can relate to right there, and that's kind of a crazy situation because I know a lot of people obviously don't make it out of those situations. How were you able to get through that? What was the recovery process like? How old were you when those things went down? You got to give us a little bit more detail on those parts.
Since I told you I'm from the hood, so this one time I was with my cousin, my older cousin. So was working. It was at night. I'm not sure if he was beefing with the dude or what. So the dude pulled up on us and he had a bottle. He had a bottle. Oh, my brother had a bottle and I had nothing. So the dude pulled up with a knife. So he tried to stab him, but he fought back. So it was as he was fighting back, I had to make sure I help him out. So I was trying to help him, and the dude ran away. So now as we was walking, and I think I was talking to someone and I was busy talking. Yeah, I'm not sure who I was talking to. And then the other guy came back and he stabbed me from the back. As I turned forward, because I thought it was a first, as I turned forward, he stabbed me also on the front. So I was like, oh, he's stabbing me. And then, like, I'm not sure what I hit him with, but I took something and hit him with it. So my cousin could see that now the guy came back and he came back and we stabbed him also. So but people stopped us and they said we're gonna kill him. So they stopped us, and the guy luckily was still alive after that incident. And on the second time, me and my cousin, I think it was also in 2015, we was at the club. His former friends, he was beefing with them, so they ganged up on them. There were about 10 or 9 of them, and it was only the two of us, and with our female cousin also with their friends. So I'm not sure what happened. So they stabbed him, and when I saw that he got stabbed, when I saw that he got a stitch here on his head. He got stabbed on his head, and I thought I'm gonna lose him. So emotions were running through my head. I wasn't thinking straight, so I just grabbed the knife and went to the guys. But then, as I was going to them, and then when I was in front of them, I could see like all of them are coming to me. Then as I was backpedaling, I fell, and then the other guy tried to stab me, but I kicked him, so he stabbed me right here on my right foot. So stood up, and as I was fighting, I was fighting, but I could see that there's no way that I could win against this guy. So I tried to move back and run also, so I got stabbed also on the back. So yeah, that's what. So my mom took me to hospital and got stitches.
Now, as you look at that component to your life, how has that also helped kind of grow you into the person you are today? Because obviously, those are two crazy traumatic situations, and you talked about your faith as well earlier. How would you say you even relied upon God in those situations for both just getting you through those instances and being able to make it out, but also just kind of growing into the person where you have a little bit, you're a stronger person overall and being able to get through those instances?
Yeah, God really helped me a lot. That's what I can say. And those incidents show me that a hood is a good place, but it's not a good place where you would love my kids to grow up to.
Hmm.
Love my kids to take them out of there, because sometimes you could see even the kids that are growing up now, you could see that their role models, the narrative hasn't changed. Their role models are still gangsters. You could tell by the way they walk, the way they do things. So you could tell they still have the same mindset that we had at the time as growing up. Because now I had niggas that I grew up with. Some are in jail, some are still thugs, some are dead. So for me, it's like I gotta make sure I hustle so that my kids don't get to grow up where I grew up.
Absolutely, man. Well, a couple of things I want to get into then, because one of them is that when I was doing research on yourself, I found out a couple of different stats about you when you first started getting into boxing. And you can correct me if I'm wrong here again, but I believe you started boxing at the age of 3. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's true.
So walk us through that then, because when people are 3, not a lot of people are doing a lot of stuff in their life. At least here now, here in America, I know a lot of people are not playing sports even at 3 years old. You're boxing at 3 years old, so we gotta get into that a little bit more. How did that happen?
That happened. So my father is a former boxer, right? So
Mm-hmm.
as a kid, I wasn't allowed to go out. So it's either I play in the yard or inside the house. So whenever my dad came from work and going to the gym, I used to be excited that I'm gonna go to with him. So that means I'll be going out. So I used to go with him, get into the gym, hit some punching bag, fall asleep on the chair, or get some pad work. But I'd end up falling asleep because it would exhaust me. Because but I was really, to me, it was like an excitement because I'm getting out of the house. That was the thrill of it. I enjoyed, sorry, I enjoyed going out of the house. So yeah, I never knew that one day I would fall in love with the sport. To me, it was like, nah, I just want to go out of the house.
Gotcha. Now I know your
Yeah.
name also is the Truth. You gotta give us a little bit of insight into that. How did you get the nickname? Why do you go by the Truth?
Yeah, remember I told you my favorite boxer is currently Errol the Truth Spence.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew Spence late in my life. I think after I turned pro, I've made my first debut, and I didn't have a ring name back then. Um, I was watching Errol Spence against who's this guy against Kell Brook, yeah.
Oh,
But
yep.
the thing is, I knew Kell Brook. I've seen his fights, I've seen his clips, and I knew Kell Brook was good. So
Mm-hmm.
I was watching the fight between Errol Spence and Kell Brook. So to me, it was like, who's this guy? Like you could see how to Spence dominated Kell Brook. So like, damn. So I fell in love with Spence at that time. Like, damn, this
Mm-hmm.
dude. I started like following him on Instagram, seeing how the way he carries himself. You could see Spence. Spence is a very is a very likable guy. You could see he's down to earth. He's a very he's a gentleman, man. So to me, it was like, oh, okay, damn, I really love this dude. So I remember, so I was going to my third fight. So a person asked me, so what's your ring name? And I was like, my ring name is the Truth. It was like, the Truth. I said, yeah, my ring name is the Truth. So they asked, you know that this name is gonna bring a lot of pressure to you, and you gotta make sure you're ready for the pressure that it's gonna bring. Because when they say you the truth, it means sitting is closer or inyani, so which means you the truth. No one can beat you. And I was like, yeah, I'm ready. Everyone can get it. Yeah. So they kind of like didn't get it at that point. So now when I say I'm the truth, they do believe that I'm the truth. So that's how I
Mm-hmm.
got this. It's the name that I gave to myself.
All right, so just going a little off topic then, we're talking about Earl Spence. I know it's just come out recently, the past couple of days, that it's pretty much a guarantee now he's going to fight Sebastian Fundora now, 154 championship. Give us your thoughts on that fight, the preview of it, because obviously I think this could be going down in February potentially. I don't know exactly yet, but he's going to go up to 154 now. He's fighting champion. He could become a world champion 154 now. What's your thoughts on that fight? Who do you think is going to win that one?
Obviously, I'll be rooting for Spence, no doubt about that.
Yeah,
But I think it's going to be a tough fight. I don't underestimate Fenora. At this level, there's no easy fight.
correct.
Um, I think it's going to be a very tough fight. It's a very tough fight, but I think Spencer will have enough to win. I think the problem with Spence at 147, I think it was the weight cut. You could see Spence has been on 147 for his whole entire career.
Mm-hmm.
I think that kind of like took a toll on him. That's why I'm not sure why Crawford terminated that fight. Maybe there was a lot going in there, but I believe that Spencer could have done better, and hopefully, like they get a rematch because every Crawford fan has been in my head. They been like talking about that. They're saying some crazy things. So hopefully, like at 154, they'll be able to run it back.
And that's a legitimate possibility now because we know, I mean, we don't know for sure yet, but obviously if all things fall in place and Bud decides to keep boxing, that the winner of Fundora, Earl Spence, will be fighting Bud Crawford then for unification fight. So if that were to go down, let's say hypothetically Earl Spence gets past Fundora and that's the rematch that occurs, who do you think wins the rematch, Bud Crawford, Earl Spence at 154?
I still got Spence.
Yep.
To be honest with you, you look at I take nothing away from Crawford. Crawford is a good boxer. He's a very talented boxer. The way he switches stance there's a
Yep.
very slick. But you look at Crawford when he fights tough guys. You look at Crawford versus Gamboa. You look at Crawford versus Migrimov. Crawford, he is beatable, and I could see he was calling out, who's this guy? He was calling out Canelo Alvarez. I think Spencer does have what it takes to beat Crawford, but I kind of feel like a lot was going through Spencer's head. I mean, like, just imagine you have 3 belts and you still treated like an underdog. Cause okay, Crawford is undisputed champion in the lower division, but he moved up and he had one title, which was the WBO, and Spencer had the WPC, and the IBF. But for who's gonna go the ring, who's gonna go into the ring, a coin was tossed. Just imagine, with no doubt, you all know that Spence was the A side in that fight. So I kind of feel like a lot was in his mind. And imagine now you're in the ring and you see like Crawford pulling up with Eminem. Just imagine. So I feel like a lot was going, a lot was going through his head, and I feel like he also, because he was complaining about his eye after the fight, and I think it was genuine because after the fight he said nothing. But I think 1 month or 2 months after the fight, you could see he went for an operation to make sure that his eye is straight. So I feel like Crawford, there's no way he's gonna beat Spence at 154.
Okay. Now, I want to get into your future now as well, because you now have a lot of bright future. That's the last thing I want to wrap up this interview with. And let's talk about your future now, because we look at 115, and you're now a world champion. You're one of the premier guys in the entire division now. And you have a lot of options on the table. We know one guy, one of the top pound fighters in the world, Bam Rodriguez, is sitting there. You know, you got another champion. You have Fernando Martinez, who's facing Kazuto Ioka on the 31st of December, just a couple of weeks from now. You also have the opportunity to possibly rematch Tanaka. Roman Gonzalez is interesting. Juan Estrada. Andrew Maloney's obviously in the group right there. Walk us through some of these guys. When you look at this group, you have a fight coming up eventually. Who were you looking at? Who do you want to fight next?
I won't lie. I'm willing to defend my title against everyone. But to be honest with you, the guys that you just mentioned, I'd say the weakest guys of them on is Andrew Maloney. I don't think that guy could beat me in any day. Even on my worst day, I could beat him. Um, but one fight in the future that I'd love for to happen, I'd love to fight Bam Rodriguez. People think Ben is unbeatable, and like I said, I've been written off my whole entire career. So I think people don't. People will say, "There's no way I'll win that fight." I remember going to this fight, fighting Tanaka. The odds were 8-1. So I think who's this guy? Bam Rodriguez will bring up the best out of me. But for now, man, I'd love to defend my title against anyone. Like right now, I'm back into training. It's December, but I'm busy training, preparing for whatever. But I think Gonzalez is number one in the TV. Is number one in my
Yep.
in my in my in my radar, like, because he's rated number one on the WBO. So I thought is the guy that I'm gonna fight next. But I see that like WBC has ordered a fight against him. I'll
Yep.
fight him against Andrew Maloney.
Yep.
So I don't know what's next, man, or who's next, but I'm ready for anyone, man. Like I'm saying, I'd love to defend my title maybe twice or 3 times. Probably like get a unification bout against Bam. But if the unification bout can come any day, I'll take it, man, because I would really love to fight him one day.
So basically, you're saying right now you prefer for the next, at least for 2025, at least a couple months of 2025, you want to go fight unification, or not do unification. You want to more so go for guys that's in your rankings, that's in the mandatory or one of the top contenders in your division. Then.
Yeah, man. There's no rush. I'm still young, and
Yep.
I've only been in the world stage once. So there's no rush, man. I gotta make sure I defend my title and in my stripes. Cause, for example, if I call out Ben, people will look at me like I'm crazy. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because they start to mentioning him with names like Inoa. Who's this guy? The guy from Japan. Also, he was fighting in my car.
Junto Nakatani.
Katani, the people that start to mention him with guys not in his division. So if I call him out, they're gonna think I'm crazy, and I've got nothing against him. He's a good boxer. That's why I want to fight him. So I gotta make sure I earn my stripes also, so that when I'm fighting him, people will know that's gonna be a very tough fight. I
Makes
won't be a walkover, and I'm going there to win. No doubt about it. I think I could beat anyone in my division. So if that fight happen, I believe I could beat Ben Rodriguez.
All right, so a couple of guys, if we're going to look at possible guys that you're going to fight that's going to go in the top contenders for your weight class. Obviously, talk about Andrew Maloney, who was in order to fight Roman Gonzalez there. And a quote he said a little bit ago, I think it was about 2 months ago, he said, and I forget who else he was talking about. It was about you and somebody else, but he said, I'd be comfortable and confident facing either one of them. And obviously, you already made your statement about Andrew Maloney, but I want to go a little bit deeper because he is one of the bigger names that could possibly fight you in the future. What would it be like fighting him? Is this a fight you'd be interested in taking one day?
Yeah, for sure, man. I'd fight anyone. I think he also said he could beat us in one day, me and
I think he did
Tanaka.
say, yeah.
Yeah, so he could beat us in one day. No lie, man. I feel like he had to say that just to make sure he's still relevant.
Mm.
Uh, but I don't think Andrew Maloney could beat me. You look at you. You should look at his fights and look at me. There's no way that guy could beat me. He's not a bum. He's a good boxer. I take nothing away from him. And I think he's a former world champion also. So which means he's a good boxer. But there's no way that Andrew Maloney could beat me. No way. Like I was telling you, I could like beat him in my worst day. Even on my worst night, I could beat him. There's no way that guy would beat him. I would bet my whole purse on it. There's no way that guy would beat me.
Mm.
No.
Another guy that's on the table, possibly, I know people have been rumoring it, has been Tanaka doing the rematch against him. Obviously, it was an incredible
Yeah.
fight, like I said earlier. Is that on the table? Is that something you've discussed? Is that a possible rematch we could see?
No. I think my trainer talked to Mr. Honda, and they said Tanaka is not up for a rematch now. Maybe it's just looking for a fight that is gonna bring him back. But I think for sure a rematch will there will be a rematch for sure in the future.
Okay.
And yeah, trust me, like Tanaka is a good boxer. He's a very tough boxer. Credit to him, and I'd like to also thank him for giving me a title shot because I wasn't even the military challenger when he gave me a shot. So I'm kind of like grateful to him for making sure. So any day, man, I would give him a chance because he also gave me a chance.
Okay. Now, there is another big fight. I said December 31st. As of right now, it is going to be another championship fight in the weight class. Fernando Martinez fighting Kazuko Ioka. Who do you have winning that fight on the 31st?
Like in the first fight, I had Yoka winning. For me, like Martinez is a pressure fighter, throws a lot of punches, but I think is kind of like very open, too open, and I know that Yoka is a very is a counter puncher in the he can crack. So on the first fight, I was banking on Yoka. So I think also in the second fight, I think I'm also be banking on him because in rematch, what people say, they say rematch always favors the smart boxers. So I think Ioka does have what it takes to win. But take nothing away from Martinez. He's a very good boxer. You could see what he done to who's this guy? The guy that he took the title from, the Philippine guy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I kind of forgot his name, but you could see he dominated both fights. So maybe who knows? Martinez might do what he did again. So, but for me, like if I had to bet, I'd be betting. I'll put my money on Ioka.
Absolutely. So let's look at the next schedule for yourself then. Is there a target time you want to get back in the ring by? Is it first quarter of 2025, second quarter? Like, when do you want to see yourself back in the ring fighting again, defending your belt?
Probably like late Feb or March. Probably
Okay.
like March because that like I'm telling you now, I'm training. I'm back in camp already. I'm back in training already. Probably if there's a fight in March or Feb, which means I'll start my camp in Jan. So for me, I want to get back into the ring as soon as possible because you could see like when I fought Tanaka, I come from 8 months rest. So I was inactive for some time because I last fought in December. But to say it's like I didn't fight in December because in December I won my fight in 26 seconds. So that wasn't even a fight. So
Yeah.
I've been on the bench for some time. So I want to like be active now. So hopefully by March or Feb I'll be able to defend my title.
So when do you think we could possibly get an announcement? Is there a certain time point where you say you want to get a deal done, whether it be like you said, something against Roman Gonzalez or whoever it is, Juan Estrada, Andrew Maloney, whoever it is? Is there a certain week or sometime you're kind of targeting, saying, "Hey, I want to get an announcement. I want to get the fight made by this date"?
I'd say probably like maybe probably like the second week of March.
Okay.
For real, I'd love to. And I was hoping that I'd fight who's this Gonzalez, because it's kind of like awesome when you're fighting a tough guy. You could look at Gonzalez's record. He has about 56 fights, 4 losses, and 52 wins, probably like 40 something knockouts. So going against that guy, like I said, man, one day I want to be in the Hall of Fame. So beating guys like that will probably like guarantee me a spot at the Hall of Fame. So I don't want easy fights. I don't want easy fights. I want the toughest fights as possible. Like I said, there's no such thing as easy fights, but there are guys that you see that they are very tough. So Gonzalez, I also think Gonzalez will bring out the best in me, but no hard feelings if I don't get to fight him. But yeah, man, I'm up for whatever. It doesn't matter who I fight. I just want to fight.
Absolutely, man. Well, the final thing I want to get into in regards to your next possible fights is you talked about Bam Rodriguez a little bit ago, and I really respect the opinion you gave on that because I think that makes a lot of sense too. Building yourself up, getting ready for that one, and eventually, and kind of making it make more sense when you guys are both big names going at it. But when that fight potentially does occur, and that's obviously we don't even know, he could possibly move up in weight class, and there's rumors of him going up and fighting June 2 in the future, so we don't know what's going to be in store. But if that fight were to commence, whether it be end of 2025, 2026, whatever the case might be, kind of break us down that fight a little bit. Like, what would you see yourself? How would you kind of prepare for that fight? And just how excited would you be possibly to go get in the ring and fight a guy like Bam Rodriguez?
You think you look at Bam Rodriguez. I think a lot of people mistake Bam for Rodriguez for power puncher, but it's not. He's more like a tactical boxer. Tactical boxer. He works his angles. And he punch accurately. He's an accurate puncher. Not that he has power, but he punches accurately. And you saw when he fought Estrada. Estrada caught him and he went down. Showed character and got up and went to stop Estrada. So I think that fight I'd have to work more on my feet, making sure I cut the angles, make sure I don't make him more comfortable. I don't think it's very comfortable fighting on the back foot. He always bring the fights, to you. So I'll try and bring the fight to him and see if he could also take the hit or what.
Absolutely, man. Well, I got one final question for you before I let you go. And there's a question I like to ask everybody before I let them go. And that's when you talk about your future. One day you're going to retire. One day you're going to walk away from boxing. And when that day occurs, what is it that you want everybody to remember you for? What is it that when people think of your name and what you accomplished both inside the ring and outside of the ring, what do you want your legacy to be?
I want people to remember me like as one of the greatest South African boxers. Outside the ring, I want people to remember me like as a very humble guy, a very loving guy, a guy that tried to change his community. Because as soon as I get to where I want to be, I'll make sure that I give back to my community and try to change the narrative that they have. So I want to be remembered as a good person who tried to make change in the world, not just in the community, but also in the world.
Absolutely, man. Phumelele, I appreciate taking time to come on today, man. I can't wait to see what God's got in store for you in your future. And once again, thank you for coming on today, man.
Okay, one more thing, I'd like to also thank my trainer and manager, No Doubt Management, Colon Nomakanjani. I also like to thank my promoter, Larry Winston of the Boxing Five, and I also like to thank one of my strength trainers and also sponsors, Rogia Reyes. And I also like to thank one of my sponsors, Network X and Power to Health. So thanks to everyone who made sure that I was ready for this fight and everyone that has been in my corner. So also thanks to my mom and fans. Thank you all, guys. So yeah.
Absolutely, man. Well, appreciate you so much for coming on today, man, again.
Okay, thank you too, man, for also having me.
Of course, you're always welcome on, man. God bless you.
Thanks, bro.
I appreciate everybody for tuning in today for this interview. I'm going to have that clipped up and posted by tomorrow at the latest. I thank you guys all for tuning in once again. I'm going to get into the rest of the show after this short break, but I'll see you guys in a few minutes, and God bless you guys all. From the moment I was born, a ball was in my hands and a deep passion for sports was ignited. My dream was to play the game for as long as possible, but God had other plans. After battling with severe illnesses caused by black mold poisoning for nearly 4 years, I made the difficult decision to let go of my on-court dreams heading into my junior year of high school. However, I was determined to have one last victorious moment as an athlete, and that was achieved on February 9th, 2019, when I ran a marathon at the age of 16. That night, as I took a recovery Epsom salt bath, I felt God place on my heart the idea to start a podcast. Although I didn't know where to begin, the first episode of SchuZ Views dropped on March 11th, 2019. Over the next 1,183 days, more than 600,000 people tuned into 1,056 interviews. Then, on June 6, 2022, my final interview for over a year was released featuring Jameer Young. I never once thought that I'd be off the air for over a year, but the truth is there was something missing in me. At first, I thought creating a website would help fill that void, so I went and put together SchuZ.net, but nothing changed. Throughout the next month, I continued searching for answers, and eventually, God worked in the only way that would have gotten my attention at that point in time. Through something work-related. By the end of July 2022, my parents blessed me with the opportunity to build a studio. However, before breaking ground, the real change began. On August 3rd, 2022, my life changed forever. Once again, I happened to be taking a bath late into the night, and suddenly, an indescribable feeling came upon me. It was a profound urge to open up my Bible and read. I turned to 2 Corinthians chapter 4, and since that night, not a single day has passed without me spending time in the Word. You see, what was missing all along was Jesus. On August 6th, my dad and I began to lay the foundation for the next chapter of my career. Simultaneously, the foundation of who I was created to be was also being laid. Over the years, I had lost sight of my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. I knew of God, but I didn't know Him, and I certainly was not following or living like Him. But day by day, the new me began to take shape. My former self's sole priority faded away, and I began to live out the acronym I often talked about, FJTFOE. It stands for First Jesus, then Family Over Everything. God became my everything, and He transformed me entirely. He helped me rediscover my love for family, running, lifting, playing basketball, giving back, the church, and most importantly, Him. This journey began with a craving to nourish my old identity, but God's hand was always in control, rapidly shaping my new identity. As God transformed me, He also grew my relationship with every member of my family. Together they stood by me and contributed to the person I am today. Through it all, Ephesians chapter 3 verse 20 manifested its truth in my life. The blessings I received far exceeded anything I could have imagined. The truth is that God's hand has always been there, but now I'm committed to following His path. Although I may look different, and my heart has undergone a profound change, I am truly blessed to announce the beginning of a new chapter. Starting July 24th, I will be launching my new show, the SchuZ Show, which will air on my YouTube channel every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern Time. I can't wait for you guys to join me in this next chapter. I'll see you guys soon, and may God bless you all. There is a funny aspect about you, and that's the fact that I don't think you necessarily even tried to, but there's been countless times in your brief NBA career already that you've made it viral. You've made memes of yourself, whatever it might be. One of which was in the midst of that 40-point streak. You obviously broke LeBron's record, and you made your comment saying about, well, I'm not really a LeBron guy, I'm a Kobe guy. And I don't think you even intended that to go viral. Now you have that.
Nah, not at all.
There's your Steve Nash moment during the Summer League. We know that aspect. I think that was after the second year. You had a fine, obviously, at one point. You have your branding that you've now done. When you look at all these, like, do you ever intend to expect something to go viral or be funny, or does you just end up happening, and then by the time you get back on your phone, you're like, oh, this already just went down, dang.
Bro, that's crazy. No, not at all. No, because even with my brand, like when a random person asks me, because random people always see like, oh, he's so serious, and I'm just like, bro, and then I say it all the time, like I say it no matter what, and I said it at one time and it blew up. And I was just like, I mean, I said it, I've been saying it every time, like somebody asked me that, so that blew up. And then the Kobe thing, I was just being honest. I mean, it's no disrespect to LeBron. I love looking at LeBron playing stuff like that. You know, he's done a lot for the game and stuff. But it's just me being a fan of basketball, me growing up with Kobe. Just, my love for Kobe is like unmatched. So, really that part. So really everything I say, I'm just like, I mean, I'm not really intending to go viral. I'm just speaking what's on my mind at that point. So, if it goes viral, it goes viral.
Which one of the things that's happened so far, maybe even one that I've not listed yet, was the most surprising to you? Like by the time you got on your phone, maybe even someone else came and told you about it, where you're like, dang, that really went viral?
The branding,
Mm-hmm.
my brand. Honestly, I was never expecting that to go viral because I always said it. I would always say the same thing, no matter what somebody asked me. That I always said it, and that went viral before. And then that one particular day, I woke up, and then the very next day, or a few hours later, I don't really remember because we was playing Philly when I said it. We was playing Philly, and then when I said it, it took off, and I was like, oh man, I was not expecting that at all.
How could I miss? I done got hit with a heavenly flow. Into the clip, loading it up and I'm letting it blow. Better move quick, it's life and death, and you can't choose both. This ain't about to go the way that you think, I'm just letting you know. Taking the stats from where I'm at, it's not even close. Bridging the gap, if I get a track, murder she wrote. Bigger than rap, we coming back for whatever you stole. Believe when I say that, I say all of that, cause I'm ready to.
Welcome back, everyone, to the SchuZ Show. I'm your host, Zach Shoemaker, and this will be getting into the combat currents part of the show. And just for another update, as I've discussed a couple of times in the most recent shows, things are going to be switched up a little bit for the month of December, where I'm going to be trying to separate both the Eternal Echoes, Combat Currents, and Hardwood Realities into 3 separate showings. So I want you guys all to be able to know that portion. So right now we have a Combat Current show, and then we'll see if we're going to keep on that schedule and kind of make it a little bit more locked in on what days are what heading into the new year. But for now, this next month of December is going to keep going on with this 3 separate shows. They'll each be a little bit shorter, obviously, but we'll see if you guys enjoy that a little bit more. Make sure you guys let me know in the comments on whatever it might be, the live chat, whatever it is, what you guys would prefer. That being said, though, obviously this entire show is kind of planned for happening on Tuesday, I believe it was, and we had some technical difficulties. So we're not going to be able to get into the fullness of this show, though, and we're going to be breaking down a lot of stuff. Now, I know it's a few days late because obviously the weekend's now passed, and we're almost approaching this upcoming weekend, but I still want to recap everything that went down this past weekend in combat sports, since you guys haven't heard my opinion on them yet. Let's get right into it now. We're going to start with UFC 310. The final pay-per-view event of 2025 is in the books, and it was a pretty darn good card overall. But there's a few topics I want to get into, though. I'm going to start off, and we're going to go down from the bottom of the card up, and I'm going to give you my thoughts on the cards that I'm going to, the fights I'm going to discuss primarily. The very first one, Brian Bow, he defeated Randy Brown by split decision. And let me just make this very clear here. This was a controversial win. Did Brian Bow win? I do think I gave him the slight edge there. But that's not what I want to discuss today in regards to this fight. What I want to discuss is the component here in which we saw Brian Battle weigh approximately 194 pounds on Saturday night. But at the time of weigh-ins, he was 4 pounds overweight. That's unacceptable. And I'm sick and tired of seeing some of these things occur because what was claimed by Randy Brown is something that I think is accurate. Now, can we confirm it? Can I officially say that Brian Battle purposely missed weight to have an advantage over Randy Brown? No, but here's what I do want to emphasize on this. Your job as a professional athlete is to show up on time and on weight. If you don't abide by that contract that you signed, that's a problem. It doesn't work in any other avenue of life, in any other job where you can show up and not be prepared for your job. And I understand this. Weight cutting has become, according to many doctors, the most dangerous component to combat sports. But on top of that, weight cutting is something that has become more and more excessive as we've gone on to see as much as you can get as a weight advantage on your opponent. But if your body can't be able to get to a certain weight, then you have to either move up in weight class or figure out something else. Because showing up 4 pounds overweight is not okay. And I understand that the purses got separated. They had new percentages, and Randy Brown ended up making a lot more money from that. But at the end of the day, as Randy Brown said when Brian Battle officially missed weight, was a very accurate statement. He said, listen, at the end of the day, yes, I could make more money in this fight now. But what's going to happen is that if Brian Battle wins this fight, as he ended up doing, he's only going to become a bigger and bigger name. He gets to keep moving up the rankings, and eventually people are just going to forget about the weight cut. 100% accurate statement. That's why that fight should never have occurred unless they decide to go forth and make a different change. What I believe needs to happen is there needs to be much stricter punishments on those that can't make weight. If you can't make the weight cut, don't do the weight cut. You need to be showing up on time at the right weight. And if you can't abide by that, then that's a legitimate problem. And that's why I think it's become an issue in all forms of combat sports. We know weight cutting has become a massive, massive discussion. And how do you go by it? What's the right way of going by it? Listen, at the end of the day, show up at the right weight. That's simple. If your body can't abide by that and you can't get to that weight, then don't do it. That's my stance on that part. So yes, Brian Battle, I am high on him. I think he's going to have a very, very bright future in the UFC, but missing weight is unacceptable, and you should not be able to do that. Otherwise, you should have a lot more severe consequences. I don't have it exactly written up, but there should be a lot more severe consequences than what the current protocol is. The next one. I've been very, very vocal about this on social media, and as we were going through the fight night and everything going on in UFC, I made it very, very clear. The fight between Aljo and Mozart should never have been on anything outside of the main card. And when we look back at it now, that was one of the best grappling masterclasses you could watch this year. It was an absolutely incredible fight between those two. It was very, very neck and neck. I personally had Aljo winning. That third round really is what the fight came down to. I thought Aljo won. However, obviously it could go either way. Not really against it. I don't think it was a robbery. It was anything along those lines. It was an incredible, incredible fight, especially from a grappling component. But that being said, I think we need to understand that these two guys were placed on were not placed on the main card for reasons that I'm not quite sure about. I understand the last performances were not necessarily blockbuster. They weren't necessarily very appealing fights. However, that was, in my opinion, I think you could easily make a legitimate debate that was the best fight of the entire card. And we all knew that had a chance to be a very, very good fight. And yet, for some reason, it was not anywhere close to the main card. I believe it was 3 or 4 fights on the prior rounds, and that was not okay at all. I think that those two guys are disrespected. I think Aljo specifically is one of the most disrespected champions in all of combat sports, or especially the UFC history. He does not get the respect that he deserves, and placing him at this point on the card was unacceptable. However, that was an incredible fight. It was great to see those two guys. I would not be opposed to a rematch one day, but I do want to go branch off real quickly and discuss a little bit more about Aljo. What I saw that night, and I understand he went and discussed it with his team, is it something he wants to go move on from it? Is he supposed to move on from combat sports? What's the job for him going forward? I think he should be move away from that fight and look at it from a positive light. He didn't move down the rankings at all, and rightfully so, because he proved, listen, I could compete with one of the best guys in the entire weight class. There's no reason that he shouldn't be able to stay confident and say, you know what, I can stay here and possibly look to become a champion one day. He has not many fights off of it. 2-3 fights, he's right back in the title shot. And I think that he needs to keep his head up, keep going, pursuing this, because, listen, he has an incredible job. He looked great in that fight, and I think he's got a bright future. Next thing I want to discuss now is not really going into the 2 fights, but Bryce Mitchell made his return after obviously a year almost off from fighting after he had one of the more scary-looking injuries in UFC history this last December. But Bryce Mitchell and Choi both looked absolutely incredible. Both had great statement wins. And I think that those two guys have already been talking. That's the next fight you need to make. I hope we see that in 2025. All right, here's a few things I want to get into now. The final 3 fights of the night. Ciryl Gane had a fight against Alexander Volkov. Anybody that watched that fight knows that might be the biggest robbery in the history of UFC. If not it is certainly in the top echelons and tier of robberies in UFC history. It was absolutely unacceptable. Listen, let me just state this very, very clearly. If you have an opponent and his team so upset with their performance that they're literally walking out of the octagon and leaving, then you give them the win. I'm not quite sure that possibly happens. The team and Ciryl Gane were very, very aware that they lost that night. They were very, very aware that they were not going to win that fight. And yet somehow when the scorecards came out, they became victorious. And I don't think anybody has any idea how that happened. Dana White was not happy. Hunter was not happy. The UFC people were not happy. Fans were not happy. Volkov and Gane were both shocked and surprised. And Volkov's case was very, very upset, and rightfully so. And yet somehow Gane won by a split decision. How was that possible? I'm not sure. And this is a problem that we've had having way too much of in combat sports. Judges are consistently messing up these fights over and over again by giving these horrible decisions. Listen, I don't have any idea how it possibly happened. It would be tough enough to debate someone to say Gane even won a single round that fight, let alone won 2. I think Volkov swept the table right there. I think he won through all 3 rounds. Somehow, somebody had Gane winning 2 rounds, and multiple people had that. 48-47, 48-47, 48-47 on a split decision. Or 29-28, sorry, 29-28, 28-29, 29-28 on a split decision. My apologies, I was reading the Shavkat card right there. Absolutely ridiculous. And then we come to find out, and it makes sense, Gane did not look himself, he did not look good at all, and he ended up having both his metatarsals that gave way at the start of the first round, and multiple injuries. His foot was messed up in that fight. So when we look at that component, it makes a lot more sense. He did not look good. He did not look like himself. But yet he somehow walks away with the victory. I don't understand that. And that shows that we need more changes in the judging. There needs to be more accountability from judges because that was one of the biggest robbers we will ever see. That being said, I need to address the heavyweight division in the UFC right now. At the end of the day, in that fight, while Volkov looked incredible, he looked very, very good. I think he won that fight by a large margin. It doesn't make the heavyweight division very inspiring for the UFC. So here's the picture we currently have. Jon Jones is obviously the champion, and the interim champion is Tom Aspinall. We know the fight needs to happen between those two, but let's say that fight happens. That's one of the biggest fights you can make all the UFC. We've talked about that many, many times. What happens then? What happens when we get a champion? Let's say Tom Aspinall wins that. Let's say Jon Jones wins that. Whatever the case may be, great. Is an only good guy possible that we could have in the fight is Volkov, who Aspinall's already fought and won? The heavyweight division is very, very uninspiring right now. And that's why I think they need to get something figured out. Whether that be getting somebody back into the UFC to challenge those guys in the heavyweight division, or that be bringing some guys up from light heavyweight. And obviously, we know the big name that they need to bring up is Alex Pereira. But at the end of the day, the heavyweight division is not looking very, very good. It's not very inspiring after the Jon Jones-Tom Aspinall fight goes down. And could you imagine, let's say Jon Jones defeats Tom Aspinall, then what? Then what do we end up getting in the UFC if Jon Jones defeats Tom Aspinall? Well, then we don't have anybody when Jon Jones steps away for the most part. And so the UFC needs to figure out the heavyweight division right now. There's a lot of question marks. There's a lot of things that need to be settled right there, but it's overall not in a very inspiring and not very good at place that they're in right now. Let's move to the co-main event. Shavkat defeats Ian Machado Gary by unanimous decision, 48-47, 48-47, 48-47 were the scorecards in that one. When we come to find out later on after the fight, Shavkat reportedly does have a torn MCL and he fought in that fight with it. You know, it's not an uncommon thing. We've seen a lot of fighters fight with torn ACLs, MCLs, whatever the case may be. That's what Shavkat went through. And that's a good excuse, I could say, because he didn't look like the dominant version of Shavkat that we all were expecting or have seen recently. That being said, though, we need to give credit where credit is due. Ian Machado Gary stepped up when a lot of people did not want to face the guy that people claim as the boogeyman of the division. Ian Machado Gary went out there and put on an incredible show for all things considering. And I look at it this way. Was he a victorious? Did he win that fight? Absolutely not. But is there any reason that we can't look at that and he can take some mental positive notes away from that fight? I think he should. He didn't fall anywhere in the rankings, and he rightfully so should not have fallen. But Ian Machado Gary went out there, short notice essentially, right? Because this was a rematch. It was supposed to be Bilal Shavkat, a world championship fight. It ends up becoming just a title eliminator fight. And Ian Machado Gary was already preparing for a fight against Joaquin Buckley. And what ends up occurring there is they switch up Colby Covington to fighting Buckley. And then we obviously have this fight get made. And he came in at the last second, essentially, and put on a very, very good display. When we look at the fight, we look at the way he performed, I'm much more higher on Ian Machado Gary now than I was before the fight, and he even lost that one. And I understand it's a very, very confusing thing. This is a very rare thing that can occur in combat sports, but I believe that in this instance, it's what rightfully should be said here. Because I look at Ian Machado Gary now and I say, you know what? I think he found out what was it to. I don't have to pull it up. I think it's 7 he's still at. But I look at it and say, you know what? I think he's one of the top guys in the division. And I even would go as far as to say he's now has another win or two away from becoming a legitimate title shot for him. But I think I would not be shocked to see Ian Machado Gary fight for a world championship in the future in the UFC. That's how high I am on the way he performed in that fight. Because I feel like, listen, he won 2 rounds against Shavkat. I think the scorecards were very, very accurate there. But I think he looked very, very good. And what happens if he takes an entire training camp and prepares for Shavkat in the future? Or if it's Bilal Muhammad, whatever the case may be. I am very, very high on the way Ian Machado performed there, and I think he has a bright future to the point, like I said, where I legitimately do think he's now one of the top guys in the division. I'm not going to debate that. I think he's a legitimate threat to possibly win a world championship in the UFC eventually. So that's my takes on that fight right there. Shavkat versus Bilal Muhammad is going to be the next fight. We already knew that heading into it. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. Shavkat had torn MCL, like I said. Does that heal up? How is it going to look when he fights Bilal? I don't have an answer for that. But what I do look to see is I think that fight is a lot more intriguing now than it was beforehand. I think heading into the fight, most people looked at it and said, hey, you know what? Shavkat, Bilal Muhammad is going to go down. We know what to expect in that fight. And we're going to have a situation where Shavkat is probably going to be the favorite against Bilal Muhammad. Now we look at it and say, you know what? Shavkat didn't look like the boogeyman that a lot of people thought he was going to look like. And I still am very, very high on Shavkat. I'm not sure who I'm going to give that fight to. I usually don't make my decisions until a week or two prior to the fight going down. So there's a lot of things that's going to happen between now and that fight happening. But I am very, very intrigued to see what's going to happen in that fight because Shavkat Bilal Muhammad will be a good fight. But I think it's a much closer to 50-50 fight than it would have been if we look and we were asked that question, 7 days ago, 8 days ago. Let's head to the main event, though. And it went, if somebody were to tell you that you're going to have a guy that's never fought in the UFC and he's going to get thrown into a world championship fight, undisputed fight, in his very, very first UFC appearance, I think a lot of people would probably say it's going to go similar to what we witnessed on Saturday night. Now, listen, I don't want to get me mistaken. Kai Asakura, he made it around. And then he gets a weird naked choke submission and at 2:05 left in the second round there. But it looks just like we would have expected, right? That is an insane jump to make. Like, you have to understand, he went from never fighting the UFC before to now fighting one of the best fighters in all the UFC just like that. There was no working his way up. There was none of that. He just jumped the line and fought for a championship right out the gate. That's a very, very tough thing to do. And so that's why I say, listen, right now, Asakura, he went in at number 14 ranked in the UFC rankings for the weight class. And I'm not against that at all. But listen, at the end of the day, we don't know what he is. That wasn't a normal jump. It's never happened in UFC history before. I don't think it should ever happen again. But I think he's going to be closer to 7-8 range as opposed to 14. But the answers, we just don't know. So props him for taking that fight. Obviously, the weight cut did look a little interesting there. I will say that. I think he didn't look good in the weight cut. He looked abnormally thin. He did not look very, very strong. And it looked like the weight cut could have impacted him. Not using any excuses there. I'm just saying from his own standpoint, it's interesting to know if he's going to stay at the weight class or move up. We don't know yet, flyweight. But here's what I really want to get into in this final discussion about UFC 310. Pantoja deserves a lot more respect than he currently deserves. He just was moved up on the pound-for-pound list to number 9. Only moving up 2 spots. But let's look at his resume. He is tied for the most wins in UFC history, the most finishes, and the most submission wins. He's tied for the second longest win streak at flyweight. And when you look at the list of all-time great UFC fighters, he's currently up there. DJ is obviously number 1 on my books. And then you're looking at a group, Henry Cejudo, and you look at Pantoja. Those are really the top 3 guys you look at in flyweight division, all-time sake for MMA history. And yet, he does not get the credit that he deserves. And I understand this. Listen, there's a difference when you talk about the mass media. Those that love the UFC and MMA as a whole will respect those that don't necessarily have the great knockouts and KOs. They don't necessarily have the big branding images that a guy like Conor McGregor has, a guy that, even if we're going to go as low as, say, Colby Covington, those type of guys that make big following for themselves because of their mouths. He doesn't do that. But you can't deny the resume. Pantoja's record and his resume has become so good at this point in time that it is hard to deny his greatness. It would be foolish for me to sit here right now and say, hey, I'm not a big fan of Pantoja. I don't think he should be ranked that high. He doesn't deserve the credit. No. Look at what he's accomplished. And yet he does not get anywhere near the credit or respect that he deserves for what he's accomplished throughout his career yet. And I think it's time to give him more credit and respect. Listen, I'm shocked just by the fact of the matter that, listen, number 9 on the pound-for-pound list, I get he's not moved up weight class. I understand these things. He has completely cleaned out the flyweight division. We're talking about having to bring some guys down. We're talking about bringing Kai Kara France up, whatever the case may be. He has cleaned out this division better than just about anybody. Where we're at a point now where DJ would have made sense. That could have been the only guy that could challenge him right now. Or him moving up in weight classes. And yet he's number 9 on the pound-for-pound list. I absolutely disagree with that. I think it's ridiculous he does not get more credit that he deserves because he is far better than being the number 9 fighter on the pound-for-pound list. He has earned his stripe, but I think it's time for everybody to give him more credit. Because listen, you can't deny resume. You can't deny wins. At the end of the day, if you dominate to the extent in which he has dominated for this much amount of time, you have to at least give him credit at some point in time. It might not be a blockbuster. It might not be the most entertaining guy in the world. But you cannot deny greatness for what he's done. He has mastered an aspect of MMA where nobody can defeat him. No matter how entertaining they are, they can't defeat him. He keeps winning time after time after time, cleaning out an entire weight class. It's time to give him respect that he deserves. And we have to stop just gloating over the fact that he's not that guy or he's not respected in the ways that some of these other great fighters in the UFC are. Because he is that special. That's what I want to wrap up saying about UFC 310. But now we got a lot of stuff we want to get into in regards to boxing now. Because last week was a lot of boxing stuff that I want to get into as well. So let's get right into that right now. Starting off out there in the UK, Magnificent 7 went down. And we had a big fight. Denzel Bentley, Brad Pauls were fighting. And Denzel Bentley defeated Brad Pauls by unanimous decision. It was as one-sided as it really gets. Listen, that was a fight that was going to really potentially set up for a possible world championship fight. And when we walk away from that, I'm not going to say that I think Denzel Bentley has solidified himself as a guy that deserves a world championship fight next. But he made a statement. He defeated Brad Pauls in what was likely to be a world championship fight after that. It's going to be interesting to see what he goes from there. But listen, he was solid. I think he's going to get a world championship fight in the near future. It was not a very entertaining fight, I would say, to be honest, but it was a good fight. He dominated Brad Pauls, moves on. I think he's going to get a world championship fight in the near future. The biggest thing I want to discuss, though, from the Magnificent Seven was a guy that was on, I think it was the third or fourth fight from the main event, Lawrence Okolie. He stopped Hussein Muhammad in the first round via TKO. It was an explosive TKO. Very, very good. I have that posted on my Twitter timeline if you guys want to go check that out, or at X timeline to correct myself there. Listen, a lot of questions were surrounding Lawrence Okolie heading into this fight. We know what he's already done in the Bridgerweight division. He was a world champion there. And now this was his big debut at the heavyweight division. And when he weighed in, 262, a lot of people were looking at that and said, "Ooh, this man was just making, what was it, 110 just a couple of months ago?" He was at 162 as he weighed in at. That's a lot of pounds in a short amount of time. And so a lot of people were questioning what's it going to look like. And the answer is we don't know. Because at the end of the day, he's got a lot. He only went, only a couple minutes in that first round. It was a first round TKO. So we don't know exactly how long is he going to be able to go when you talk about fatigue and stamina and whatnot. But listen, he made a statement. And he is now a guy that I look at and say, you know what, this is going to be a play at the heavyweight division. I can't say yet he's going to be a world champion caliber guy. Is he going to be a top contender? Where's he going to rank in the top guys at the heavyweight division? I don't know yet. But I am very, very intrigued because I think Lawrence Okolie had a chance to be a guy that's going to make a name for himself in the heavyweight division to some extent. So that's a guy to definitely keep an eye on as we head into 2025 because there is a new player in the heavyweight division. Let's head over to the Dominican now, where we had Liam Paro defend his world championship fight at 140 against Richard Hitchins. This was a fight that was very, very intriguing. I called it a 50-50 fight. We saw Liam Paro go on and put a masterclass against Subaru Matias just a few months back. He ended up taking Matias' belt, the guy that everybody said was the boogeyman of that division. And now we look at this and we say, it's very, very intriguing for me because the IBF super lightweight title was on the line here. And Liam Paro didn't look very good. His first title defense, and Richardson Hitchins goes out there and defeats him. And a very, very dominant showing. Now, can I say one statement real quickly? 111 to 117 scorecard in favor of Liam Paro was one of the most ridiculous scorecards of the weekend. That's including the Cyril Gahn thing. I don't know what the heck that was because the other two scorecards were 116, 112, and 4 in favor of Richardson and Hitchins. I agree with that one. That being said, though, just going back on topic now, that fight was a statement made by Hitchins. Following round 4, he turned the notch up drastically. He made a massive statement, and he went and earned that himself a world championship fight. And he became the IBF super lightweight title holder. He's legit. He is the real deal. He looked very, very good and makes a new player now at the 140 division. As for Liam Paro, I go back and I say this. Styles make fights. In that fight against Subaru Matias, whom I am still very, very high on, it was a situation I look back and I think, you know what? Was Liam Paro just pretty much the kryptonite to Matias' strategy and his style? Where Liam Paro had such a perfect game plan for him that night. He was the guy that just was the kryptonite per se to Matias. And that could be the case because when we look at that fight, Liam Paro did not look very good at all. This was not a very close fight, especially after round 4. And I look at Subaru Matias, I'm still very, very high on that guy. And I just feel like this was a fight where Liam Paro went out there and he was who Liam Paro is, a good fighter, a top, contender, challenger in the division. But is he a guy that's going to be a world champion again? I'm not very sure about that. And I do like Liam Paro. I think he's a good fighter, but I think we learned right there the difference between him and Hitchins. I think Hitchins is the guy that showed, you know what, he's resilient. He knows how to fight at a high level. He's going to be a very, very good fighter for the future. And now there's a lot of big fights we're going to make with Hitchins because I think he's a legitimate guy. He seems to me to be a guy that's going to hold this belt for a little bit. And I think he's going to make some noise here. Could we get a Subaru Matias fight? Possibly. I would like that fight. Could we possibly see him go get a unification or something along the lines of Teofimo Lopez? Could we see a Devin Haney fight? Maybe Ryan Garcia? There's a lot of guys on the table right now, but listen. Richardson Hitchins is a guy that I'm very, very excited for. He looked to me more like a world champion in that fight. He made a statement there, and I think he's going to be a guy that's going to hold that belt for a while. The USA officially does have another world champion, which is exciting. Now we're coming out to Arizona real quick, and we're going to discuss the two big fights that went down in Arizona on the top ranked card. First of all, the WBO featherweight title, Rafael Espinoza, he defeats Robeisy Ramirez via 6-round TKO. Very intriguing fight there. Espinoza was going to win the fight regardless. He was dominating Ramirez in that fight. And then something starts to happen in round 6. Now, if we look back at the camera work, there seemed to be some people claiming it was an elbow, but nobody could find that. And then we start looking at the facts that was Ramirez possibly having an eye issue that had started to emerge at some point in the earlier rounds. I'm not sure. But Ramirez just gives up. He just throws in the white towel. He just throws in the flag by himself, waves the white flag by himself. He opts out of the fight, and it's done. It was one of the strangest KOs I've seen in boxing, especially for Mexican-style fighters. It was not something I think anybody was expecting. Now, listen, if he was in pain, if he truly had double vision, whatever the case might be, nothing against the guy. This was a very, very strange thing to see, but Espinoza dominated him. And he was going to win the fight no matter what. Espinoza solidified himself, and now he sets himself up to either be a guy that can move up in weight class, challenge the guy I'm going to talk about next, Navarrete. You could see him possibly go fight the guy who was just on the show last week, and which we could obviously see right there would be SchuZ. That would be a fight that we could see that would be very intriguing possibly there. But listen, Espinoza solidified himself. He dominated the rematch. It was going to be a win from regardless, and he gets the W there. He can defend his WBO featherweight title. Let's move up to the main event now. Emanuel Navarrete defeats Oscar Valdez in the rematch via 6-round TKO. He defends his WBO super featherweight title. Let me make this very, very clear. When Emanuel Navarrete is on, I'm saying when he's in this mode, when he's locked in, he's focused, he's ready to go, there's not a lot of guys I think can possibly beat him that's a realistic fight. That Navarrete that we watched on Saturday night was special. That Navarrete is the guy that we look at and I can say, you know what? He's the guy that's a problem. At 130, he's a legitimate problem that I don't think a lot of guys are going to want to face. Navarrete's ability to just have power, have skill, have everything combined when he is on is a very, very scary fighter. Like, I don't really know how many guys on my list I would say could defeat Navarrete in a fight at 130. Like, there's not a lot when he is on. Now, the thing is that we see Navarrete sometimes is off a little bit. And when he's off, obviously, we see him lose before. We've seen him defeat. We've seen him not look very good. But when Navarrete is on, he is a scary good fighter. And one of the, I would say, I don't have a list in front of me right now. The Navarrete I witnessed on Saturday, I could consider him a top 15 or 20 type of guy on pound type of list. Like, overall boxing skills, he is that type of guy. I think he's a spectacular fighter. Now, I'm just going to give you guys a quick recap, though, on some of the other fights that went down throughout this weekend. Sam Noakes defeats Ryan Walsh. David Adeli. Now, this Adelaide, he's also a guy that was very, very heavy. He's moved to heavyweight now. I like him a lot. He looked very, very good. Early TKO there as well in the first round against Solomon Decrees. He's got to keep an eye on the heavyweight division in 2025 as well. I believe he was just mandated to fight Moses Itoma, if I'm not mistaken, just a few moments before I started the show up. So that's a fight to keep an eye on as well. Then super lightweight, Lindolfo Delgado. He defeats Jackson Marinez in 5th round KO. And then the heavyweight division, Richard Torres Jr. defeats Isaac Munoz in the 3rd round KO. Listen, that side on that one as well, Richard Torres Jr. Jared Anderson is the number 1 heavyweight of the future in from America. Torres Jr. is something that I'm going to keep an eye on. He hasn't fought a big opponent yet, but I am keeping my eye on Richard Torres Jr. because I believe that he's a chance to be second best young prospect of the heavyweight division in the United States. Just keep an eye on him. Super featherweight division, Henry LeBron defeats Christopher Diaz via unanimous decision. In the flyweight division, Yanquiel Rivera defeats Angel Gonzalez via 4th round KO. He looks special as well. That's the guy that's keep an eye on 2025. I think he could make a big, big name for himself as well. Now, I got 2 things I want to wrap this show up talking about with you guys. 2 news-related subjects that come down the past few days I want to get into. First and foremost is, listen, I discussed last show. There's a lot of discussions about Boots right now. Boots, did he duck Virgil Ortiz? Yes, he did. That's the answer at the end of the day. But there's a big fight that's now coming into rumors now. Teofimo Lopez might be moving up to 147 and fighting Boots. If that's the fight that commences and goes down, I'm all for that. Listen, Jaron Boots Ennis is a very, very good fighter. I like him a lot. Going up and fighting a guy like Teofimo Lopez, if he moves to 147, could be a massive pay-per-view event in the United States in 2025. It would be a very, very intriguing fight. Now, if I were to give you guys my preferred route, it'd be Teofimo Lopez goes and beats somebody and takes a belt at 147 first, and then they do a unification fight. If that doesn't occur, it's fine. It is what it is. Boots, Teofimo Lopez is a massive fight to make. Big pay-per-view. They're both going to make a lot of money. And the winner of that fight would solidify himself as being probably on the top 10 pound list. I know a lot of people already have Teofimo Lopez up there, but I think that would solidify. The winner of that fight is officially solidified and cemented on the top 10 pound list, if I'm not mistaken. That would be a very, very intriguing fight. Who do I have winning that fight? I'm not sure. Like I said, I don't make my official statements until we're about 2 weeks out. However, what I've been seeing is that now that Teofimo Lopez has gone and been a part of Canelo's group, has been training with them, has made that team his now, and has been working out alongside those guys like Canelo, and the way he's been looking, trying to emphasize more on power, it does make sense why he wants to move to 147, and I'm very, very intrigued to see that. At the end of the day, Boots Ennis has not looked the best in the past couple fights. He showed some flaws. He showed some inability to be the dominant guy that we've seen him before. He is still very, very good. But that's a very intriguing fight. I'm not going to make my official stance on that until about a week or two before the fight goes down. However, this is a fight that is very, very good. I think it needs to happen, and it would make sense. Listen, this is a good fallback plan. Boots Ennis did not want to go up to 154. He made that very, very clear. He's staying at 147. It's not a unification fight either, so it's going to be long in that aspect too, but it is what it is. This is probably the best fight he can make now. I hope he makes it. I'd love to see this fight go down in 2025, hopefully in the first quarter of 2025. They need to get that announcement out pretty soon. The final discussion I want to give you guys today, UFC related. Ilia Topuria has made it very, very clear now that he plans on giving up the belt and moving on up to the lightweight. That's an interesting discussion there because there's been rumors of this, and it seemed more so like he wanted to do something where he kept the belt and fought Islam. And it appears he says basically, no, I'm not going to do that. I wanted to go relinquish my belt, give it up, and move on up and work my way up at the 115, moving up to the lightweight division. And he listed a couple of guys. Dustin Poirier is a possible guy, as well as Charles Oliveira. Both of those fights would be massive fights to make. And listen, I'd be shocked a little bit, but we've come out now. There's been some reports from his trainers that, listen, the weight cut for him was very, very tough. He wants to move up 10 more pounds, makes him a little bit more easier for himself, and start to work his way up there. Listen, the featherweight division has lots more fights to make. We know the rematch against Volk is on the table. I've never been a big fan of that because, listen, Volk to Topuria 2 is probably not going to go very good for Volk. Not the fight I want to see, but it's still on the table. And then you look at a guy like Diego Lopez, who's a guy that I think deserves a title shot. I think that would be an interesting fight. I think Topuria wipes out the division regardless, though, but it still is an interesting fight. And I figured, you know what? Go through 2025, get the Volk fight done, get the Lopez fight done, and then Lopez fight up done, and then move up in 2026 and go do the Islam fight, whatever it might be. But if he wants to do this right now and he says he wants to return in May, that's going to be intriguing for me. Because listen, is Topuria ready to go fight at the next division at lightweight? I don't see why not. He's got the power, he's got the ability. It would be very intriguing. Listen, Charles Oliveira seems like a weird stylistic matchup. I would prefer for him to go Dustin Poirier. I think that makes more sense for him. But listen, a side note actually, what Topuria could be putting together in his resume is to become the biggest villain in UFC history from a standpoint of who he's KO'd. We talk about guys he's already KO'd. Max Holloway, fan favorite. Then you go over to Volk, fan favorite. Oliveira and Poirier, two of the massive fan favorites. A lot of UFC people are not going to like seeing him KO these guys possibly, but let's just say that he has the ability to do that. And it makes it a lot more interesting because also from the standpoint, let me say this. When you talk about featherweight division, I just said that I think it's more so like a ticking timeline, right? We know he's going to probably defeat Volk. We know he's probably going to defeat Lopez. Why not move to 155, get lightweight division? That makes the most sense in my opinion now when you think about that because listen, at the featherweight division, we already know he's going to wipe out everybody. Just going to be kind of wasted time fights he's going to defeat. But now at featherweight division, it opens it up where Volk and Lopez for a title shot is a very, very intriguing fight. That's a fight that I'm willing to see, and I think Volk has a chance of getting a world championship back and get a belt back. But that's actually a very, very intriguing fight to see right there that I'm all for. I think it opens up the featherweight division because there's a lot of good fights you can make there. But as for the next division, that could set up where if Ilia goes out and defeats Oliveira or Dustin Poirier, that makes sense and you have a mega fight set to go fight Islam. And probably what would it be? The back end of 2025? I'd say third or fourth quarter most likely because he fights in May. That would probably be setting you up for a fight that could possibly go down. Islam's fighting in January, September, October, UFC, whatever that is. That could be a fight you see right there. And so either one of those options makes sense to me, but I actually am very, very high on that. If he moves up, goes and fights Poirier or Oliveira, then you make a mega fight. That probably would end up being one of the biggest fights you can make in the UFC. It'd be right up there. Ilia, Islam, if Ilia defeats Poirier or Oliveira, would probably be almost neck and neck tie with a possible Aspinall Sean Jones fight. That's my stance on that part, but listen, I'm all for it. If that's what Ilia Topuria wants to do, by all means, go ahead. Work your way up another weight class and continue to build that legacy and the resume he's already started to build. So that's what I've got for you guys on today's show. I appreciate each and every single one of you guys for tuning in today on the SchuZ Show, on this Combat Currents edition. I'm planning on going live tomorrow, but it's going to be a Harvard reality show tomorrow. So that's for all the basketball guys. I plan on possibly getting another Combat Currents show in this week, though. it might be Saturday night or Sunday to recap Saturday's fights. If not, the latest, it will probably be Monday or Tuesday. But like I said, this month of December, it's going to be a lot of things. I want you guys to comment, let me know what you guys prefer. I'm just going to be kind of going around whenever I get the chance, see what works out, what days work out, what times work out to get you guys hardwood realities and combat currents. I'm planning on there being 2 combat currents, 2 hardwood realities, and one internal echoes segment or so each and every single week, making it 5 shows. That's typically going to be a much shorter time span. Now, today's show has a little bit of technical difficulties, so I ended up making it a little bit longer today. But I plan on having that be the routine once we head into 2025. Just want to see how you guys think about that, or if you guys do prefer me sticking out and going with the 3 shows or 3 different type of topics in one show 2 times a week. So let me know what you guys prefer in the comments, the live chat. Thank you guys all for tuning in once again. I will see you guys tomorrow. May God bless you guys all, and appreciate you guys all for tuning in once again. Have a great rest of you guys Thursday, and God bless you guys all. Talk to you guys later. SchuZ out.